In the worst case situation, how much time is he facing if he blows trial?
Vlad, this is
Life?
This is a life imprisonment case. Okay. There's no in between.
Federal authorities say Lil Durk is also behind an alleged murder-for-hire plot.
Prosecutors say the rapper tried to destroy an Apple Watch in jail to cover his tracks, and he's now being accused of allegedly taking out hits on his own Opel.
According to rumors, some of Lil Durk's admirers allegedly wrote derogatory threats to the judge and the prosecution. As a result, Durk's attorneys are actively working to get the entire case dismissed. Everyone was wondering what was going on after this twist. This is where it gets insane. These threats were allegedly concealed by the federal government for a full 7 months. 7. People are now wondering if Durk will ever walk out of that jail, or if he is going to be imprisoned much further due to these grave charges of murder for hire. It's a messy story, it's noisy, and every detail is becoming more and more incredible. This case has layers, so let me fill you in on all the specifics. Durk, government name Derek Banks, was apprehended by the federal authorities at a Florida airport on the 24th of October 2024, just as he was attempting to leave the nation. They advanced quickly on him as if they were waiting for the ideal opportunity. The feds are claiming that Durk was involved in the planning of a murder-for-hire hit that occurred on the 19th of August 2022 at a petrol station near the Beverly Center in Los Angeles. They claim that the crew's goal was to catch Quando Rondo slipping. However, his relative Lupa Robinson was the one who perished, a catastrophe that caused the entire situation to blow apart.
According to the complaint, Banks and his co-conspirators allegedly worked together to, quote, track, stalk, and attempt to murder a target at a Los Angeles gas station, firing at least 18 rounds into the person's vehicle.
He's 32, a successful rapper, and a Grammy Award winner. Federal authorities say Lil Durk is also behind an alleged murder for...
According to the feds, this wasn't a coincidence. This is being portrayed as retaliation for King Von's violent altercation with Quando Rondo's guys in Atlanta in November 2020. They are promoting this entire story as though the streets have been harboring resentment that has never subsided. Look, these accusations against Durk are really serious. They are discussing the use of communications over state boundaries in a way that allegedly ended in a fatal conclusion, the conspiracy to commit murder for pay, and stalking that also claimed a life. In this kind of case, Durk would be imprisoned for life if the jury found him guilty. No easy outs, no shortcuts, and no second chances. This situation was made much more dramatic by the fans' prolonged concealment of their threat. Durk's legal team is now vehemently challenging that argument, claiming that the federal government acted unethically and violated the law.
A successful rapper and a Grammy Award winner. Federal authorities say Lil Durk is also behind an alleged murder-for-hire plot.
Wow, guys. We have Lil Durk, who's been gone now for a year, is what it's looking like.
One of the most intense legal disputes hip-hop has seen in years is emerging from this whole situation. In this instance, there was absolutely no negotiation. It's simple. Either Durk wins, or it's over for him. Additionally, the way the federal authorities are speaking, they seem to have a complete blueprint for him. They claim to have pieced together every detail, claiming that credit cards were used to pay for hotel rooms associated with the alleged shooters, purchase flights from Chicago to California, and pick up ski gear.
There was no screams in it. What the government said is, look at these lyrics. These lyrics seem to be, they don't seem to be, they are celebrating and ultimately monetizing this incident, to which we responded. And I have to tell you, Vlad, we immediately started hearing from not only people that are connected to Durk, but like executives in the music industry. People were just reaching out to us, go, you know the government's wrong, right? You do know that music, you don't go to a studio on a Saturday and produce a song on Monday. And then we started doing our homework, interviewing the producers, and found out that that song and the Durk part of it was done 7 months.
The administration likes to promote this kind of content because it makes things seem seamless. They're claiming that Quando Rondo's car was hit by at least 18 shots, which caused onlookers to turn their heads. Then it becomes even more bizarre. On the same day that the gunman reportedly took off for Los Angeles, they said Durk sent a message instructing his people, "Don't book any flights under any names involved with me." To exacerbate the situation, the feds claimed that at about the same time, Durk boarded a private jet with his co-defendant, Kevon Grant. The feds are heavily leaning, overpainting the timeline as suspicious. They even discuss wiretaps and bank receipts that they claim demonstrate Durk's behind-the-scenes influence. They claim that Grant purchased ski masks and secured hotel rooms for the individuals they are accused of being engaged with, utilizing Durk's vehicle, a Grammy winner and a successful rapper. Lil Durk is allegedly involved in a murder-for-hire scheme, according to federal prosecutors. Whoa. Guys, it appears that Tiny Durk has been absent for a year. Durk entered a not guilty plea right away, and his entire team has been battling tenaciously.
And I'm sensitive to that issue because I don't know of another art form, and you have your finger on the pulse of rap as good as anybody in the world right now. And I guarantee you that Vlad cannot tell me another musical genre in which the government plays the game, if you have kids, and I know you do, Where's Waldo, right? Where they sit and look through not hundreds, not thousands, but probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of verses, and tries to find something that they think in their prosecutor's office or their law enforcement offices is somehow connected, possibly, to a crime. That's disconcerting to people that care about this musical.
But the evidence they are presenting appears to be stacked on paper, at least based on the way the government is presenting it. After that, the plot takes an unexpected turn, which is when things start to quickly go off course. Durk's legal dream team filed a motion on the 13th of November 2025, requesting that the court dismiss the entire case. They claimed that crucial information was concealed by the government for more than 7 months, which is a major problem in any federal prosecution. The courtroom is usually ready to get heated when attorneys start yelling about hidden evidence. This is the part that stunned everyone. 4 voicemails were left for U.S. Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue on the 22nd of February 2025. Furthermore, they weren't your typical furious messages. The entire courthouse was on edge due to these potentially fatal voicemails. Officials took the matter very seriously after reading a note that claimed, "If they get life, I'm going to burn this mother night down. I'm talking about the world, and I'm going to burn it."
In the worst case situation, how much time is he facing if he blows trial?
Vlad, this is
Life?
This is a life imprisonment case.
Okay.
There's no in between. This isn't state court. There's no,
Right.
hey, we'll do 10, 15. It's a life case.
Right. Could it be a capital murder case where he's possibly facing the death penalty?
Well, that, under the federal system, that possibility exists. We've not been given notice.
Burn it to the ground, legal system for a lawyer or someone acting on your behalf. This is one of the largest conflicts in the history of the federal court system in California. The fact that Durk's lawyers discovered via their inquiry that there was a conspiracy with the judge, the prosecution, and the investigators to weigh aside and cause threats that Durk's had murderers is demonstrated by this billion-dollar lawyer signing a contract for that on the job. Anyone would tremble if they heard something like that. And it didn't end there. Ian Yanalu, the chief prosecutor, also received a threatening phone call on the 28th of April 2025. Security immediately tightened when the caller threatened to shoot him and his squad if they didn't free Durk. Threats like those are not tolerated by the judicial system, and Durk's attorneys claim that the concealment of this information constituted a serious infraction that may be challenged. Everything. Thus, have a look at this. As this particular section caused the entire system to malfunction, the FBI wasted no time at all. Every federal court in California was placed on high alert as soon as they became aware of the issue. Even more security was implemented by U.S. Marshals as if a significant incident were going to occur. There was no shining moment here. This was high-level official business. This is where things get really nasty, though. More than 7 months later, on October 1st, 2025, they finally disclosed these threats to Durk's attorneys. 7 months is a long time to sit on such important knowledge. A delay of that kind can quickly turn a case upside down, so anyone would see that negatively. You may be wondering how Durk could possibly benefit from a group of irrational supporters making threats. Allow me to explain the legal strategy his lawyers are promoting. Judge Donahue denied Durk's release during a bail hearing on the 8th of May 2025, keeping him imprisoned. However, no one disclosed at the time that she was allegedly getting potentially fatal texts from Durk's supporters. Additionally, the defense was never informed. The entire legal team was furious about that alone. According to Durk's attorneys, this led to a significant conflict because the judge was in danger and under stress, which may have compromised her capacity to render an impartial decision. This has, I believe, been going on for the past few weeks. When they learned about it and brought it to the court concealed it and did not inform the defense. This implies that a judge should actually disqualify himself if a defendant is threatening him. Leave the bench so that another judge can take over. They contend that they might have requested a different judge to hear the case if they had been aware of these threats, but they were kept fully in the dark during the decision-making process. They now claim that all of the decisions made during that time are dubious. His lawyers clearly outlined everything in their 25-page motion. However, the prosecution was not going to ignore that. They quickly retaliated, denouncing Durk's gesture as extravagant and foolish. In essence, the defense is exaggerating. They maintain that every action they took was done to preserve the integrity of the process and that they informed the defense about the threats as soon as they concluded the inquiry. They claim that nothing dubious occurred. However, this is when things start to seem fishy, and everyone saw it right away. The same prosecutors are. The Durk followers are now advocating for an anonymous jury, citing the same threats they dismissed as unimportant as evidence that they would attempt to intimidate anyone involved in the case. It appears messy as they attempt to have it both ways. On the one hand, they claim that the threats were made by irrational fans, but on the other, they use them as an excuse to conceal the identity of the jurors and provide other forms of additional security. Defendant supporters have already attempted to intimidate individuals connected to this case. They're using that to paint Durk as somebody with a dangerous network that can reach outside the courtroom and pressure federal officials, the prosecution stated in their brief. A hearing on this motion was set for the 18th of November 2025 in the LA federal courthouse before Judge Michael Fitzgerald. It's a heavy picture they're trying to draw, and everyone was aware that it was going to get really intense. In significant cases, this type of scenario where threats directed at a judge are concealed from the defense rarely occurs. As a result, legal professionals across began to pay attention. They want to see how this develops because it might establish new guidelines for what is and is not acceptable. Although the majority of legal experts believe it is still unlikely that the entire case will be dismissed, the fact that Durk's team has such a compelling case is already outrageous. One of the most significant turning points in the entire affair appears to be this hearing. Judges rarely dismiss a case due to a procedural error, and federal proceedings typically favor the prosecution. They handled like a last-ditch effort. However, there is a chance that the case will be transferred to a different district. Additionally, things could drastically change if all of the judges in Central California decide to stand down due to the controversy. The trial is now set for the 20th of January 2026, but the outcome of this motion may cause that date to change significantly. We may witness a completely different atmosphere with a completely different courtroom spirit if Durk's side succeeds in this move. The evidence continues to mount, and the street has been humming with activity. Therefore, we must discuss Durk's past before delving further into the current circumstances because it influences how the federal government is currently handling him. Durk has had to deal with the system for a long time, and they are using his background to influence how they treat him now. He was arrested on a firearms charge related to a shooting investigation back in 2011 and was sentenced to 3 months in jail. Then, in 2012, he ultimately took a plea for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon and served an additional 3 months in prison. He was arrested once more for stealing a hob in 2013 and was imprisoned for 43 days. The system seemed to be watching him every year. Then he was charged with another firearm in 2014. Even though he was already on probation at the time, that one was finally removed, allowing him some respite for once. Prior to all of this federal drama, the most significant case occurred in 2019 when he and King Von were charged with attempted murder in Atlanta following a shootout that occurred close to the Varsity restaurant. The industry was rocked by that case. However, those accusations were dropped in 2022, and Durk got away with it. This is the bit, though, that truly startled many. Just a few weeks prior to the federal authorities apprehending him in the current case, in September 2024, Durk had his whole criminal record officially erased, as if he had reset everything and put his past behind him. At last, he had managed to put himself in a position where his past cases were no longer a threat. Then these suspicions of federal murder for hire suddenly hit him like a ton of bricks. Nobody anticipated the bizarre turnaround. Let's now examine the details that the government claims decreased, because everything stems from the long-running conflict between F and their competitors, according to the indictment. This is not an arbitrary circumstance. According to the feds, it originated from a long-running beef that they have been monitoring for years. After what happened to King Von, everything changed. F and the group associated with Quando Rondo and NBA Youngboy had been embroiled in this conflict for years. On the 6th of November 2020, Van died at an Atlanta hookah lounge during a violent altercation between his crew and Quando Rondo's group. That evening quickly descended into chaos, and Timothy Leaks, sometimes referred to as Lil Tim, who participated in Quando's. The rounds that killed Vaughn were fired by the security team. For months, people on the streets were discussing the entire incident. Many people following the case were astonished when those accusations against Lil Tim were dropped in 2023, but prosecutors said Durk wasn't going to let any of that go unaddressed. This beef goes far beyond music, as they believe he put money on Quando Rondo's head and utilized F's finances to finance a comprehensive retribution campaign. That is a major point of contention for the government. Time travel to the 19th of August 2022. At this point, the indictment starts to appear serious. 5 members purchased one-way tickets from Chicago to Los Angeles using connected credit cards, which the federal government claims are a component of the digital trail. Durk and Kayvon Grant reportedly flew to California in a private jet that same day. Additionally, prosecutors are making use of that timing as if it were a perfectly fitting puzzle piece. If you believe someone was going to do business as usual, you wouldn't advise them not to book a flight in your name. You wouldn't advise them not to meet under your name if you believed they were traveling to Los Angeles to discuss you and your upcoming album. You would only advise someone, don't book any flights under any names involved with me if you knew they were about to commit a crime and you didn't want to get implicated. Later that evening, Quando Rondo was followed to a petrol station by 2 vehicles carrying gunmen, close to the Beverly Center. At least 18 rounds were fired at his car at that point, killing his cousin Savia Lua Robinson and leaving Quando unharmed. Because it directly relates to their notion of retribution, the feds are heavily relying on this event. One of the strongest pieces of evidence, according to the prosecution, is that Grant used Durk's automobile to pay for the shooter's hotel rooms and buy ski masks for them. They are promoting this paper trail as if it were the foundation of their argument. Furthermore, the indictment claims that Durk is not the sole target. 5 additional males were also charged. Kayvon London Grant, TFC Murder, DeAndre Dantrell Wilson, FDDY, Keith Jones, FF Slazy, David Bryan Lindsay, F Boom, and AA Houston Boom Mo are some of these individuals. All of them, according to the prosecution, had a part in organizing or executing the hit, and they are closely monitoring every detail. There are several layers to this indictment, but this is where Durk's situation becomes much more terrible. Rumor has it that the government has a star witness, someone who turned themselves in and is assisting the authorities. An entire case can be changed by that one detail alone, and for that reason, the entire business is keeping a careful eye on this scenario. As of right now, no one is aware of the identity of this cooperating witness because the federal government always keeps their identities secret until the trial begins. However, we do know that this witness has repeatedly changed their account, which is seriously undermining the prosecution's case. The court documents state that this individual initially asserted that there was no bounty at all and that everything that occurred was the result of coercion. Suddenly, they claimed that there was a bounty and that co-defendant DeAndre Wilson had stayed in Los Angeles to collect and distribute the money. People were startled by that flip alone. However, Durk's defense team acted quickly, claiming that the second version is completely inconsistent with the confirmed evidence. The government actually omitted the section regarding Wilson giving out bounty money from their revised indictment as a result of their intense resistance. It's not a minor detail. That is a significant change. A federal case can be completely destroyed by a key witness altering their testimony in such a way. Additionally, the defense will have a field day if this witness testifies with conflicting accounts during cross-examination. A courtroom can be rocked by this kind of discrepancy. Let's now discuss a subject that has generated debate for years: the use of rap lyrics in criminal proceedings. In Durk's initial indictment, prosecutors did just that. They attempted to prove that he was rejoicing and making money off of Lulu La's murder by using passages from his songs Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy. The government promoted the notion that these lyrics were Durk boasted about the success while attempting to relate his artwork to actual acts of violence. However, Durk's legal team quickly put an end to that. They produced production documents, filed stamped audio files, and the producer's evidence, stating that the song was recorded 7 months prior to the actual shooting. There were no cries in it, but they said, unless Durk got supernatural powers, there's no way those lyrics were connected to that specific situation. Look at these lyrics, the government remarked. Although these lyrics don't seem to be, they seem to be. In the end, they are making money off of this occurrence by celebrating it. We answered. And I must tell you, Vlad, we quickly began to hear from executives in the music industry, as well as people with ties to Durk. People were contacting us and saying, you know, the government's wrong, right? You are aware that you don't go to a studio on a Saturday to write a song. Monday. After that, we began doing our study and contacted the producers. We discovered that the music and the Durk portion had been completed for 7 months, because it demonstrated how quickly prosecutors were attempting to use his music against him without verifying the timings. That argument struck a deep chord. The government then dismissed a superseding indictment in May 2025. And you know what? All of those lyrical illusions vanished entirely. Durk's squad had a significant victory, but it also revealed a more serious issue. Even when his artwork didn't fit the actual circumstances, prosecutors continued to promote it as evidence. It demonstrated how easily they could turn artistic expression into illegal activity. And this relates to a much larger hip-hop controversy. The way lyrics are utilized against musicians rather than as entertainment or narrative. Artists, attorneys, and fans have all been engaged in this conflict for many years. And Durk's case served as yet another illustration of the chaos that results when the government attempts to convert rap lines into confessions. And since I'm unaware of any other artistic medium, I'm sensitive to that problem. And you are currently more aware of the current state of rap than anyone else in the globe. Furthermore, I can assure you that Vlad is unable to name another musical genre where the government is involved. Where's Waldo if you have children? I know you do. Correct? In their prosecutors or law enforcement offices, they sit and search through hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of verses in an attempt to identify something that they believe may be related to a crime. For those who are interested in this sort of music, that is unsettling. In order to prevent prosecutors from using rap lyrics as evidence in criminal cases, California approved the Decriminalizing Artistic Expression Act in 2022. This is the catch, though. This case is federal in nature. Thus, Durk is completely unprotected by state law. The fact that the feds are still free to use whatever they choose has already caused some individuals to be suspicious of the entire arrangement. But wait, there's going to be much more heat. Documents that had just been made public began linking Durk to further suspected murders in more serious circumstances. At that point, the courtroom began to get noisy. Reports surfaced in December 2024 that connected him to a Chicago murder in 2021 that involved Stefan and was purportedly motivated by retaliation for the death of Durk's brother, D. That gave him a whole new level of attention. Then it continued much beyond. According to a private witness, Durk allegedly set bounties on 6 distinct individuals. Although no one was charged for any of that, the prosecution is utilizing those allegations to construct a narrative in front of the jury, as if they are attempting to portray Durk as the mastermind behind several schemes. They even intend to present testimony claiming that Durk gave the order to kill his own associates, who they think failed to do enough to exact revenge on King Von. That kind of accusation has the power to change a jury's opinion of a defendant. Chaos in Durk's federal lawsuit has recently reached a whole new level. Following alleged threats against a judge and prosecutor, the authorities are now asking for an anonymous jury. According to the prosecution, the rapper attempted to hide his tracks by destroying an Apple Watch while incarcerated. Additionally, he is currently being charged with allegedly hitting his own O-Block associate. If any of that were accurate, Durk would be seen as someone who had high standards for loyalty. However, these assertions did not result in any additional charges. Even though none of it has been proven, prosecutors are merely using them to paint a negative picture of him. Swaying the room is all about tactics. Then there's another turn of events. While Durk was incarcerated in late August 2025, Bureau of Prisons officers seized an Apple Watch that had full cellular service. It is a major infraction in and of itself to have a phone or smart gadget of any kind inside a federal prison. Prosecutors, however, claim that it didn't end there. They say that after Durk was apprehended, he attempted to destroy the watch. That is a serious charge because it gives prosecutors the opportunity to claim he is prepared to impede justice or conceal evidence. Additionally, they accuse him of making unauthorized three-way phone calls from within MDC Los Angeles, which is another infraction that the government frequently uses to demonstrate that a person on supervised release cannot be trusted. And they're using all of this to claim that Durk is dangerous, incapable of adhering to regulations, and shouldn't be. not even on bail. Speaking about bail, Durk has already been turned down several times. In May 2025, Judge Patricia Donahue blocked his release. In June 2025, Judge Michael Fitzgerald tightened his grip and imprisoned him once more. Durk's legal team made a very attractive offer: $150,000 from an accomplice, $900,000 in real estate, $1 million in cash, and round-the-clock armed security and technological surveillance. In an attempt to get him home, they essentially put everything on the line. However, the court remained unyielding, citing the infractions, the charges, and the purported communication problems as support for their belief that he shouldn't leave before trial. The court has been handling this as though the stakes couldn't be greater, and it's one of the most difficult bond battles the industry has seen in years. Durk scheduled several overseas trips prior to his detention, according to the government's assertion that he posed a flight risk. They cited that as one of their main justifications for keeping him confined, attempting to demonstrate that he was getting ready to leave rather than deal with the accusations. However, Durk's lawyer, Drew Finling, dubbed the billion-dollar lawyer in the game, returned with a bang. He claimed that Durk had no intention of running away. He was merely attempting to travel to Dubai for work. Additionally, he transferred to a private plane when the commercial flights lacked comfortable seating. The defense claims that's the kind of action someone with money makes, not someone fleeing. People need to understand what is truly at stake. Therefore, let's discuss the worst-case scenario. Durk faces life in prison if he goes to trial and loses. No 10-year, 15-year, or light sentence is an option. They play a very different game in this federal court. People have started paraphrasing Vlad in the interview footage, saying, "This is a life imprisonment case. This isn't state court. There's no middle ground. Hey, we'll do 10 or 15. It's a life." How much time is he facing in the worst scenario? Trial, Vlad. This is a life. This case carries a life sentence. There isn't a middle ground. This isn't a state court. Hey, we'll do 10, 15. I take it that this is a life case? Is it possible that he will be executed in a capital murder case? That option does exist under the federal structure, though. We haven't been informed of that. The question that everyone is afraid to even consider came next. Could this become a capital murder case where the death penalty could be applied? This situation is getting to that point. And for that reason, every judicial action taken today has far-reaching implications. Even though the government hasn't, that prospect is unquestionably possible under the federal system. Not yet received formal notice. To be honest, the conviction rate in federal prosecutions is more than 90%. Unless they are very certain they will prevail, the government does not press charges. The trial is set for the 20th of January 2026, but that date is far from set in a case involving a death and a money trail that the prosecution claims connects resources to the incident, with the odds heavily stacked against Durkin. That trial date will depend on the outcome of the major hearing on November 18 and any subsequent appeals. Might be pushed back once more. Additionally, the request to dismiss will be fully contested in federal court at a significant pre-trial hearing scheduled for the 2nd of June 2025. It's going to be an intensive day. Durk's team will almost certainly file an immediate appeal if the judge rejects the motion. You can expect that the government will file an immediate appeal if the judge allows the petition, which would be shocking to the legal community. Whatever happens, this case is going to extend for a considerable amount of time. Nothing about this is happening quickly. Durk's attorneys are still working to get him freed on bond while he is being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. The court haven't changed despite their constant arguments. Durk's legal team, particularly Drew Finling, is one asset. Finling, widely recognized as the billion-dollar attorney, has represented everyone, including NBA YoungBoy, Cardi B, Gucci Mane, and Lil Baby. Additionally, he has established a reputation for being incredibly combative, inventive, and tactical in his defenses. When you are facing life-threatening federal charges, that is the kind of attorney you want. Find significant victories that have already been achieved in previous cases. He assisted in reducing Lil Baby's charges to time served. For YFN Lucci, he worked out a contract that would allow him to leave soon. Additionally, he was crucial in NBA YoungBoy's victory over numerous gun and drug cases. He is the one who can handle a challenging federal murder for hire indictment. However, he stated unequivocally that this case is an uphill battle from every perspective. Regardless of how Durk's case turns out, the entire event serves as another illustration of the complex interrelationship between hip-hop culture and the criminal justice system. For years, drill music in particular has been scrutinized. Critics claim it encourages actual street violence and exalts violence. Disputes. Supporters counter that it's just artists expressing their reality and mirroring the difficult circumstances of their upbringing. The true solution most likely lies in the middle. However, one thing is certain. Law enforcement does more than just prosecute crimes when they target drill rappers. A whole culture, a whole sound, and an entire community of musicians who depend on music to survive are all under pressure and convey themselves. And situations like this demonstrate how dangerous the tension can become when the industry and the courtroom collide. Over the past few years, Durk has made a concerted effort to turn his life around. He accepted Islam, started the Neighborhood Heroes Foundation, and even discussed moving away from violent themes in his music. However, his past and the history associated with F returned loudly, regardless of how much progress he made. What is the current state of affairs? In a case based on text messages, credit card tracks, witness testimony, and evidence the feds claim to have been accumulating for more than 2 years, Durk is facing the prospect of living behind bars. His legal team filed a shocking motion, alleging that they were unaware of death threats sent against the prosecutor and judge, potentially tainting the entire proceedings. The outcome of this entire trial could be determined only by that move. Durk maintains that he is innocent and that his supporters have been supporting him on the internet. However, the conviction rate at the federal level is more than 90%. Additionally, prosecutors don't bring such accusations unless they are very certain. January 2026 is the date of this trial. However, this could take months or even years due to pretrial debates, appeals, and the possibility that the case would be transferred to a new district. The entire hip-hop scene is keeping a close eye on, because the culture's future may be shaped by what occurs here. This case may establish new guidelines for the use of rap lyrics in court, how the government deals with musicians associated with alleged street teams, and if concealing something as serious as death threats can truly thwart a federal prosecution. Everyone is aware of the enormous stakes, and pay attention before we wrap this up. Join the family if you're having a breakdown and want to remain up to date on everything going on in the streets. Activate the alerts and click the subscribe button to start listening to Rap Revealed immediately. Every day, we release heat. Additionally, tomorrow's upload will be even more bizarre, in-depth, and unmissable. We need to know what the streets are thinking, so hit the like button, email this video to your homeboy, and leave a comment. Here at Rap Uncovered, where the truth is revealed, we'll see you in the next one of The Streets is False.